Hey guys, thank you for checking out this episode. We'd love your support by heading to patreon.com/freshly grounded. It really does make a difference in helping us continue making this content. And if not, no stress. Enjoy. Do you want to learn the language of the Quran? In fact, scratch that. Let's start again. Let's face it, we all want to learn Arabic. A few short months ago, we hosted an episode of Freshly Grounded with Ustad Ismail Beaumont, a graduate in the Faculty of Hadith from Medina University. Ustad Ismail has now put together a course that goes through Medina books 1, 2 and 3, which takes a person from pretty much no knowledge of the Arabic language to hopefully speaking and understanding the language. The course is online and available now via the link in our description. If you use the code Freshly Grounded, you get 20% off all courses.
And welcome to Freshly Grounded, the brand new podcast.
Well, it's not exactly brand new anymore, is it?
Welcome to Freshly Grounded, the podcast.
That's better.
Created by best friends Faisal and Sam.
Huh?
I said welcome to Freshly Grounded.
After that bit.
Created by
After that bit.
best friends Faisal and Sam.
Really?
Adam Al-Maghribi, Jazakallah khair for joining me, but I really, really appreciate it. I'll start by saying that you seem to be somebody who's like, who kind of bounces in and out of presence. Like, you know, you might see some of your stuff online, see your face popping up on YouTube or maybe on Instagram. Although I've never seen kind of you have a personal Instagram yourself, but it's like, you know, you sometimes see Mr. Adam Al-Maghribi and enough to hear about him, enough to take some benefit, and then maybe a few months go past, maybe a few years go past, and then and then that's it. You don't hear or see, and then he comes back. So what's up with that? Is that true? Is that true? Like a depiction?
I've got Allah barik.
Alhamdulillah.
طيب. Is there okay? I'm just do the basmala. That way I catch some barakah in my speech.
Yeah, for sure.
You know, Bismillah, walhamdulillah, wa sallallahu wa sallam ala nabiyyina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa man wala. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wahdahu la sharika lah wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan abduhu wa rasuluh. Yeah, if you want me to be quite honest with you, the reason why I'm like that is there's quite a few reasons. I don't want to pin it on one thing exactly, but I think the main reason why that happens is because I feel like that I came out too early. I personally feel like I came out too early into the da'wah scene I'm speaking about specifically. And that I might not be personally spiritually fit for it, nor spiritually fit, like I mentioned, but also at a knowledge based. I'm not mature when it comes to my knowledge yet. So because of that, that's always in the depth of my heart, which kind of makes me like back and forth. I've always loved the da'wah, so that's one thing that kind of pushes me and forces me, because I remember when I started practicing Islam when I was locked up, I just remembered I loved giving da'wah.
How old were you, by the way?
How old am I right now?
How old were you then?
Oh, how old
are you now?
I was 18 years old when I started practicing, and then I got out when I was like 19, almost 20.
Okay.
So yeah, I loved giving da'wah. So that was something that was just in me, right? And whether there was a camera or no camera, like I remember I used to go out on the streets. I would try to do my own thing with no camera, and of course like alhamdulillah, try to help my family out and things like that. So I feel like from that angle, from that feeling of wanting to push khair, that's kind of what got me into the limelight, so to speak, in the first place. But because I have that in the bottom of my heart, it kind of been stopping me. So I would show up online, and then I'd have a phase where it's not for me. And, you know, because it's a responsibility at the end of the day. It's a big responsibility, and it comes with its fitna, especially if you're not spiritually mature for it. And I personally believe a lot of people are not. You know, a lot of people, they fool themselves and they think that, you know, it's something that we can handle, we can keep up with. But well, it affects all of us. It's a fitna, wallah. And it's the Salaf Radwan Allah alayhim. This was something that they were scared of being faced with, is fame. Like the likes of Imam Ahmed. So that was something. And even when I ask myself, like, Adam, if you really think about it, you really think if Imam Ahmed was alive, Ibn Sirin, Imam Shafi'i, you think they'd have their own IG account, their own YouTube channel? You know what I mean? They're going on a camera, giving the, if you look at Ahl al-Ilm, and those are the people that, إِنَّمَا يَخْشَى اللَّهَ مِنْ عِبَادِهِ الْعُلَمَاء. The ones who fear Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala the most when it comes, those who fear Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala the most amongst us are the people of knowledge. So those who can actually look up to, who have the most iman, the most taqwa, so to speak. An example that we can look up to now is the scholars. You don't really see scholars having their own YouTube channels, and people do make it for them and kind of put their stuff out there, walillah alhamd, for the people.
But they haven't sought it.
They themselves, they're not done it. So that's something in the back of my head as well. And one person I'm gonna give big credit to, I hope he doesn't mind me mentioning his name, is Sheikh Abdul Hakim. Allahumma barik. He's someone who, like, I admire a lot.
Sheikh Abdul Hakim Hassan.
Yes, Ibn Hassan. Sheikh Abdul Hakim Ibn Hassan. Yeah, he's serious. Allahumma barik. So and I see him. One thing he told me, which was very beautiful, was if you look at one of the wisdoms of why Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala would send the prophets at old age. He would send the prophets at old age. There's a reason for that. And if you look at the majority of the people online, they're all young. So yeah, you might benefit in the sense where you memorize the Quran. You benefit in the sense where you might have memorized Bulugh al-Maram. You might have memorized Umdat al-Ahkam, sat with the scholars for a bit. But if you really look at one aspect when it comes to guiding people and being a leader and a role model, it comes with time and experience and hikmah, something that not necessarily can be learned. It can't be read in books, or it comes with experience and it comes with time. It's not something you could just get quickly, so to speak, if I make sense. You get what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, I have this ongoing battle, man. This ongoing battle with social media that makes me seem so erratic, right? And it calls to my my personality in general, like especially when I was younger. All of the siblings, they have like different personality traits, and mine was definitely, I was the erratic one anyway. And so I hate that I have this back and forth with stuff like social media, because I feel like it calls to that part of it. It's like proving that trait right. But I just genuinely have this back and forth, and I've deactivated my Instagram account so many times now that people probably don't know whether I'm coming or going. Like, it will go for 5 months, and then I'll come back for a month, and it's gone for another 6, and like just recently it came back, and it is a battle, because you do question why you do it, and also like why you believe that you're the one, like, that's need, like, even if you can convince yourself that there's a space that's needed to be filled, why do you think that you're the one who can fill that space? It's really difficult. And I think the comfort I got to an extent was when we started Freshly Grounded, because in itself, Freshly Grounded is a brand and a community, as opposed to like a personal brand. And then like having this intention of it being a brand allowed me to be comfortable being the face of it, because I, maybe wrongly so, was convincing myself that it's only temporary and that kind of stuff. So my point in that is that I even as you were speaking, man, it just sent me into some deep thought. But let's shift the conversation back onto you, and I'm happy to discuss that as well. But
keep up the good work, though, inshallah.
Jazakallah khairan. How old are you now? Because you mentioned
you brought it back. To be honest with you, I dodged that question.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
I know a few people who dodged that question. I shouldn't have asked you that. I should have asked you how many years since you started practicing, because I now know that was 18.
And let people do the math, huh?
Yeah, exactly. Let's do the math.
I've been practicing for about, I think I'm coming on to my 5th year, alhamdulillah. My 5th year, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay, so Allahumma barik. I there's so many ways I wanted to take this discussion, and
okay.
and I suppose one of the elements were that in you being somebody who's like in and out of social media, and we've seen you, and we've managed to kind of like understand we've managed to understand a few things from you by seeing you on social media. One of those things was that you're currently studying, and so that was a topic that I wanted to go into, inshallah. But before we do, let's talk about let the Sunnah go forth, because that really was where I think a lot of people started seeing the da'wah, and you mentioned that the da'wah wasn't something that you were kind of it just kind of took off, and it came across like that as well. It came across like something that, like a project that some brothers in Canada were doing, and that it took off, and these clips really went viral, and I think that a huge element of it is the fact that there was I don't know if you guys did this on purpose, but some of the actions or the ahadith that you were mentioning were ones that would take a person by surprise, or ones that people would always be inquisitive about. Like, I think I remember one, like, there's one specific one I remember, and it was an itch that I always had that I never got an answer to, and then I just saw it come across in the Let the Sunnah Go Forth, and it was the one where one of the brothers was speaking about so there was somebody walking like through the stuff, right? And one of the brothers I think maybe like stuck his hand out, and the guy carried on walking through the stuff, and then after kind of the salah was finished, he mentioned that the
hadith
that when you're praying in that when you're praying in a jama'ah that there's no that you
the sutra of the imam is
the sutra of the imam is the sutra of the jama'ah. And that was a question I had, because people would always be conscious of somebody walking between you and the sutra, but then when you're like praying Taraweeh in Ramadan, nobody seems to be affected by the fact that people are walking like through the rows and stuff like that. So do you think that one of the reasons, why do you think that it took off and it became so viral?
Okay. Before I answer the question, I just want to say, أحبك في الله, I love you for the sake of Allah Tabarak wa Ta'ala. And the reason why I'm telling you this is because, the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, he informed us to do such, if we have love for somebody, that we should tell them, So, and this is my second time talking to you, and, Allahumma barik. So I just thought I'd tell you. But yeah, as for let the Sunnah go forth, it started off spontaneous.
Okay.
And it all started from a place where I was kind of upset, disappointed, where I would give salams. So for example, if I would tell you Assalamu alaikum, or no, this is a better example. If I were to tell you Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, I would give you the full entire salams. That people would return the salam by saying wa alaikum salam. So that was something that used to bother me a lot. Like, it would really bother me, subhanAllah. The reason being is because that's not what we're commanded to do when we give the tahiyyat, is that we either meet it with the same or we greet with that which is better, as Allah Tabarak wa Ta'ala told us in Surah An-Nisa. As we greet with that which is better, and that is afdal. And of course, with the hadith of the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, the one who just gives salam, he gets a certain reward. The one who gives wa rahmatullahi gets a certain reward. Wa barakatuh gets more of a reward. So I would always be shocked that people would not do what is wajib, and likewise not want to do more in terms of getting reward. So I was with one brother, Jazakallah khair, he's in Egypt studying right now. I was with him, and I was like, how do I fix this? I just want people to just give the salam properly. That's all I want, I just want salams. So he's like, why don't you make a video? Because I know I already jumped on a video with Bukhari TV, because I did my life story with them. The first video I ever did. I took it down like twice, because sometimes I put like information. I said some information that some guys in the streets they didn't like, so they hit me up, told me to take the video down. So just to save myself from any trouble or problems, I took it down. So yeah, that was one, but it's not up on the internet anymore. But yeah, so they said just use that platform. I said, I start rolling. So we just did the first episode, and it hit thousands of views, and I was thinking, whoa. I said, okay, like And then I remember I had to sit down with Guled from Bukhari TV, and I was like, yo, what should we call this? Like, I really want to do this series. And then he said, like, call it Sunnah Go Forth. So I said, okay, because, as Imam Zuhri mentioned and some other scholars, يَدَّعُ السُنَّةِ تَمْضِي وَلَا تَعْرِضُ لَهَا بِالرَّأْيِ. Don't stop the Sunnah, especially with your opinion. Let it go forth. So we just kicked it off. At first, people didn't really like
Did you
the
say that in the
movement.
first did you say in the first episode, like, let the Sunnah go forth and don't stop it with your opinion?
No, we didn't. No, we didn't. No.
When did you start saying that?
came-
Because that became a bit of a catchphrase, didn't it, for everybody?
Yeah, that came later. That came about, like, not too far down the road. We do the hashtag, but the actual saying, I think it was like a few episodes down the road. But I think the hashtag was from the get-go, because we wanted to, like, have a name for the series to come. So yeah, then we just, like, a lot of people weren't really feeling with it. Like, they didn't really like it. So I was the only one doing it. No one else wanted to do it. They didn't think it was hype. They didn't think it was, like, that's how things start in the beginning. People don't want to support. People don't want to show love until it blows up, and then everyone kind of wants to jump on something. So it was just me kind of doing it on my own. People not really agreeing with the sunnah that I was putting out there. And looking back, yeah, I could possibly agree with that. Possibly. But yeah, then the whole model, or the direction where I was headed, or what I really wanted to post, was things that the Muslim community didn't know and would kind of be shocked about. That was kind of the idea behind it, and that's not necessarily the best of intentions behind something, to put something out that will shock the people, but from the angle where something that is necessary. For example, yawning, covering your mouth when you yawn, because shaitan enters upon mankind when you yawn. So it's from the sunnah to cover your mouth. Likewise, it's also the sunnah to close your mouth when you yawn, like not to even yawn aslan, to prevent it. And putting your hand is something that, if you can't control it, that the Prophet ﷺ never yawned, because yawning is from shaitan. So the discussion on that, the Prophet ﷺ never even yawned. Just things like that Muslims need in their everyday life that they don't necessarily know. So that was kind of the motivation and the direction that we was heading at the time.
So what was the reaction when it started really, like, getting shared everywhere and it started kicking off?
The reaction of the people, the reaction of myself.
Yourself?
I was excited. I was excited. But I remember I also told myself that, like, just be careful, like don't let the views get my attention. So at that time, I didn't have the Instagram account. I would usually make the video on my phone, but I would send it to Guled, and Guled would post it. And so I would, from the get-go, I remember from the very beginning, I would just try to avoid it, because I know, it's just not, it's not healthy. It's not healthy.
So let's talk about that then, because I mentioned earlier that we would see and hear through, like, your videos and stuff, that you were studying, and that sometimes meant traveling. So I know the videos were like at first based in Canada, and then you would see some videos in different cities. Were there some done in, like, Medina and some in Egypt?
Yeah, some were done in, I think one or a couple was in Egypt. Not much was in Egypt, because I remember in Egypt, like, I have this mentality when I go to Egypt, I'm just like, don't. Yeah, I put those things that the horses wear when they're racing. I just kind of put those on, and I just grind. It's time. It's me time type of thing, because they say in the Arabic language, they say فاقد الشيء لا يعطيه. The one who has nothing can't give anything. The one who, like, he doesn't have anything to give. So if he doesn't have anything, how does he give something? So that's kind of like my time to, like, benefit myself, and that way I could uplift ignorance for myself, my family, likewise the community, act upon my knowledge. But yeah, then eventually we ended up going to Medina. Me personally, I don't like telling people that I study abroad and stuff like that. I've never really publicized it, to be honest, because I feel like the reason why I do that is because, and again, I don't know if it's correct, but this is just kind of, it's my personal view, is that people uplift people who study abroad. They put them on a different manzil, a different station. Like, oh wow, he went to Medina. Oh wow, he went to Egypt. Oh wow, he went to Mauritania. But in reality, like, all of these things, in its essence, it really, really, really doesn't matter when it comes down to it. it all comes down to whether this individual acts upon his ilm. You know, for example, like if you look at other great scholars, I remember one time I went to travel, and I remember I seen the Sheikh. He has PhDs. He has more than one PhD. So one thing I asked him, I said, Sheikh, like, you have the likes of Fulan and Fulan in America. They put PhD next to the name. They put graduated from master's program, and people put like people are up like people put them up, and they take knowledge from them just just because of the degrees and what they say about themselves and what they put next to the name. I said, Sheikh, I said, in my humble opinion, I said, you have something that people they need, and people need to turn to you, and etc. He asked me a profound question. He answered my question with a question. He said, where did Shaykh Al-Bani rahimahullah graduate from? So I got stumped. I sat there for a second, and I asked myself. I said, I don't know. Then he said he didn't graduate from anywhere. I was like, whoa. But he said, any time that someone goes on the minbar, whether that be in Medina, whether that be in Mecca, they say, Sahhahu al-Albani. He says, Shaykh Al-Bani rahimahullah authenticated this hadith. Imagine, he passed away rahimahullah. And in the two most blessed place on the face of the earth, his name is being mentioned on the minbar. But where did he graduate from? You know, so it's not about degrees. It's not about achieving this and that. Not saying that it's not good, but that's not what it's about. So he said, I'm gonna let my ilm speak for me. And, you know, that was a few years ago. And look at you know, time will tell, so to speak. Time will tell. You know, so that's why I don't really like to tell people like, oh yeah, I'm a bride, I do this, because at the end of the day, akhi, wallah, it doesn't even matter. I could go, I could study, and I could come back, and I could, you know, may Allah tabarak wa ta'ala protect me, but I could fall off my deen. I could get busy with work and not do muraja'a and not teach, and then eventually I become a ammi. You know, I just forget everything, and you know what I mean. So I feel like it's very dangerous to have these like kind of like, yeah, I'm a student of Medina, or I'm like, yeah, I'm talibul ilm haqqan. Like, you know, I think it's very important to just be humble, study for yourself, have sincerity, and Allah tabarak wa ta'ala will put you in a place where you deserve to be when it's time for you to be. You know, I think that's very important to kind of like have everyone to kind of have in the back of their head, especially when they're trying to enter this field.
What do you think about people who say that? What do you think about people who would say that studying the deen is for some people, not for everybody, and then perhaps they don't go and study? And I suppose like a follow-up question to that is this concept of, do you think that there is a concept that we see studying as something that we do in school, then we do in college, maybe we do in university, but then when we get to the point where we start our career, studying stops. We've now done our portion of studying for our life, and now it's building family, building wealth. Even as a practicing Muslim, even somebody who, you know, considers himself someone who you know, is a good Muslim, you know, perhaps they go to the masjid 5 times a day and so on and so forth, but their studying specifically stopped maybe when they were 20 or something like that. What do you think about all of that?
I'd say for the first part of the question, and forgive me and correct me, sorry if I go off and I forget the second question, but as for the first part, the one is studying for everybody, or it's not for me, or how much should I study, etc. You know, I agree and I disagree at the same time. I agree that studying is not for everybody, but I disagree at the same time. The reason being is we have the hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, if I'm not mistaken, عن Anas ibn Malik radiyallahu anhu. And the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said, طلب العلم فريضة على كل مسلم. And there's another narration, مسلم ومسلمة. Some scholars, they differ on this authenticity. على كل حال, seeking knowledge is an obligation. It's something that's required from every single human being, I would like to say. Every single human being. And then the question now goes into what is meant by knowledge here. You know, And that's where we agree, and we can agree with the people and disagree with the people. In a sense where someone believes that studying is not for me, so I'm just not going to engage in it at all, in totality, then we're going to say, we're mistaken in this thinking. And the reason being is because it contradicts your purpose of life. It contradicts a life that you're supposed to be living. It contradicts the goals that you, so to speak, want to achieve in your life, likewise the hereafter. The reason being is because what is obligatory upon every single Muslim to mention, and some scholars have mentioned 3 things, some scholar mentions 4. One thing I'm going to mention is what Sheikh Salih Al-Usaymi he mentions, and it's something very beautiful, and I like it a lot. As he mentions, what's obligatory upon a Muslim is number 1, at-tawheed. Number 1 is tawheed, and number 2 is aqidah. And tawheed, aqidah, you can kind of put it in the same thing if you want. Is that ma'rifatullah, knowing Allah tabarak wa ta'ala, having ilm of him, in terms of his names, his attributes, his presence, his actions. And then likewise, having knowledge that ibadah, that no one has the right to be worshipped bihaqqin, in truth, except Allah tabarak wa ta'ala. Having this type of knowledge, your aqeedah and the belief of the books, the angels, the qadr, yawm al-qiyamah, etc. That a Muslim has to know these things. There's no way you're living life except that, like, you have to know these things. It's a must. And the next thing the scholars they mentioned, Shaykh Salih Al-Usaymi, he mentioned was fiqh. A Muslim needs to know a certain amount of fiqh. Tahara. How does one clean himself? How does one pray? How does one fast? That which is obligatory upon him. If you have to pay zakat, you need to know how to pay zakat. So these things that a Muslim is required to do, salah, fasting, he needs to know these things, tahara. And then another thing he goes on to mention, something very beautiful, is adhkar. A Muslim needs to know his adhkar, for the adhkar protects him from a shaitan. It's something that connects him with Allah tabarak wa ta'ala. So a Muslim, he needs to know these things, the adhkar of walking to the bathroom, saying Bismillah before he eats, saying Alhamdulillah after he's done eating, the adhkar ba'd as-salah, leaving the house, coming back. These are things that a Muslim needs to know for his everyday life. And the last thing that the Shaykh mentions, hafidhullah, is adab. And a Muslim needs to know manners. How is a Muslim supposed to conduct himself? So from that angle, it's I would disagree and say you need to know these things. It's a must. So seeking knowledge from that perspective, where you need to get what you need to get, then it's a must for you. You have to. You have no discussion, no choice in that. But now on the other hand, where I could agree with you is becoming a shaykh, becoming a da'i, becoming a alim, become a talib al-ilm, a real talib al-ilm. Like, of course that's not obligatory upon you. You know what I mean? Going extra over and beyond. Because at the end of the day, we need doctors, we need like psychiatrists, we need people that are mutakhassis there in different fields that are going to aid the Muslims in reality. You know what I mean? And maybe he doesn't have the ability to balance both and do, but so long as he has his basics and he knows his basics well, like someone can't just come to him and just give him some da'wah and then become a Shi'i the next, or whatever the case may be. Like, he's able to stay for, like, he has enough knowledge, and he has to have come across the proofs for that which he knows, especially with aqidah and tawheed and things like that. So yeah, I would agree and disagree with that statement due to what I mentioned right now. Wallahu ta'ala a'lam.
Yeah, I think my second question was, what do you think about, or do you think that we have a misconception and like a misrepresentation of what studying is and when studying should stop?
Okay, Bismillah. Yeah, it's beautiful. Allah. You're right. One thing I benefited, alhamdulillah, was the hadith. The hadith, من سلك طريقا يلتمس فيه علما سهل الله له به طريقا إلى الجنة. All Muslims, their end goal should be Jannah. That's what every Muslim should want, to see Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala and to be entered into Al-Jannah with the mercy of Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala. From the easiest ways that one enters Al-Jannah is by seeking knowledge. It's from the easiest ways. But one thing I want to point out here, يَلْتَمِسُ. The Prophet ﷺ says, يَلْتَمِسُ. يَلْتَمِسُ is like someone, as if like someone's like a blind man. Imagine being blind and you're just putting your hands out to see where you're going. Oh, okay, the wall's here. Okay, I gotta go this way. Oh, the pole is here. I gotta walk around the pole. That's just seeking knowledge like that it will take you to a path of al-Jannah. So just hearing a hadith one day, listening to a lecture another day, reading a page of the Quran, a tafsir of the Quran, that's seeking knowledge. So people have this idea where I need to go overseas, or I need to sit every single day and I need to be banging out 8 hours of studying or 16 hours of studying or 5 hours of studying every single day to be considered someone who's seeking knowledge. And if I can't do that, then this lifestyle is not for me. Rather just learning one thing a day, one hadith a day, listening to one lecture in the car, whatever the case may be, that is considered seeking knowledge. And that knowledge that you're learning, so long as you're implementing it and it's beneficial knowledge, and that is what's going to make the path easy to Al-Jannah. And that's something that everybody has to have as a goal. If it's not Jannah, what is it? So from that angle, does studying stop, or it's a life thing. It's a lifestyle. It's a lifestyle as a Muslim, not necessarily a student of knowledge, quote unquote. It's a lifestyle for a Muslim, that he should be in a constant state of learning, constant state of benefiting himself. If you look at Ibn al-Qayyim rahimahullah, one thing that he used to do was always before he would go to sleep, he would check himself. He would analyze himself. What did he do today? And likewise, the Salaf radwanullah alayhim were like the Abu Bakr as-Siddiq. When he would wake up, he would rebuke his tongue, watch himself. You know what I mean? That was something that a good Muslim, an upright Muslim should have in his mentality. And look at Imam Ahmad. His famous statement, من المحبر إلى المقبر, from the ink pot to the grave. There's different stories how the statement came about, but one story that I heard which really touched me was, when Imam Ahmad Sara Imam, and he became an Imam, he's well known, he's an Imam of Sunnah. One time a scholar came to where he was, and all the students of knowledge were running after the scholar, were running after that person. And one of the students, he looked and he seen Imam Ahmad in the crowd running. He seen Imam Ahmad in the crowd running after the Shaykh. The student was shocked. Wallahi, he was shocked. He looked at Imam Ahmad. He said, when are you going to continue doing this? Why are you doing it? When are you going to, Imam Ahmad, then he said, from the ink pot to the grave, meaning that I'm going to continue doing this till I die. Some of the Salaf radwanullah alayhim, they used to memorize a hadith on their deathbed. They would memorize a couple of hadith just before they passed away. So this is something that one needs to embed in himself and tell himself that, one doesn't need to go to a university for this. One doesn't need to set aside years for this and then kind of stop it later. But this is something that you need to incorporate in your life and continue doing it till you meet Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala. Again, I stress this, this is the one hadith that kind of keeps me going, wallahi, to be honest. I keep telling myself, Adam, this is what you're supposed to be doing. This is why you're on the face of the earth, is to worship Allah. وَمَا خَلَقْتُ الْجِنَّ وَالْإِنسَ إِلَّا لِيَعْبُدُونَ. We're not put on the face of the earth except that we single out Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala and everything that He deserves to be singled out in. And how can I do this except having knowledge? How do I pray? You'll be shocked, how many things we don't know. You know what I mean? And no one's saying don't study. Don't go into your secular studies. No one's saying don't do your podcast. No one's saying don't, go about having fun with your brothers and sisters, in the restaurants and stuff. But just don't, at the same time, strike that balance and don't leave off your deen completely. Don't leave your deen completely, because, some of the Salaf, they said, أنقذكم الله بالإسلام وبمحمد صلى الله عليه وسلم. Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala saved you with Islam and the Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam. He saved us. Meaning that Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala gave us a deen that's complete. There's no contradiction in it. There's no ambiguity, if I'm saying the word correctly, in it. It gives you a purpose for your life, and the Sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam. It gives you a reason to wake up in the morning. It gives you a reason to sleep. It gives you a reason to eat. It gives you it's alhamdulillah, Allah tabarak wa ta'ala guided us to Islam. Alhamdulillah, wallah.
When you hear those stories, when I hear those stories, like the story, it makes you, it makes me feel like really embarrassed, hearing those stories, and you were talking about the things that motivate you from stories of like the scholars or of like the companions and stuff. And even when you were speaking, it reminded me of Ustad Abdul Rahman Hassan, what he was saying about how the Salaf, they would when they were praying, I think it was Tahajjud, if I'm not mistaken, if their legs got tired, because they'd be up for so long, they would have a stick near them and they would slap their leg with the stick and talk to the leg and say, are you the one trying to compete with Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam? Is that like, and you're getting tired, you're starting to fall off? I believe it may have. I believe, and I'll double check that, inshallah. And when you hear stories like that, it makes you feel sad and embarrassed, to be honest. And the other thing that motivate or that like really really like woke me up recently was hearing about how knowledge is this whole element of, like knowledge is sought, but it's not, but it doesn't come to you, right? But further than that, because you hear that often, you hear that knowledge is something that you go to it and it is sought, and it doesn't come to you. You do hear that regularly. But when you reflect on it, and that was something I was able to do recently, that's when it woke me up, because then you hear other things like that's linked to that concept of knowledge being sought and it not coming to you. Things like knowledge doesn't go to the person, or knowledge isn't like given to the person who doesn't deserve it. And you hear like, or you see these translations of things like, it's like putting pearls and diamonds, teaching knowledge to kind of people who are not worthy of it is like putting necklaces of pearls and diamonds on swine. Like, when you hear such strong language, it makes you reflect, and then you think about yourself, and it makes me think about the lack of knowledge that I have, and makes me come to the conclusion that I need to become a person that can deserve to have knowledge, right? And obviously there's a relationship with knowledge in that doesn't mean you try and only better yourself and then wait for the knowledge to come. You better try and better yourself, and at the same time go towards the knowledge. So like picking up those books or starting a course or whatever. But that was something that woke me up a lot recently, and that's why I wanted to have this discussion with you. And this discussion, like I said, to be based around this idea of studying, not stopping, and studying all of your life, it being a lifestyle. I think that's something that's like recently really, sometimes something keeps reoccurring back in your life, and it's like when you buy a car. And then when you buy the car, all of a sudden you see that car everywhere, and you wouldn't have noticed it before. And it's like when something's on your mind, you know what I mean? And it's like that when something comes to your mind. And when that thought came to my mind about knowledge being something that should be sought and it doesn't come to you, then I feel like I just started constantly seeing things, or I was listening out more to things that related to that topic, right? Like it's not like I started seeing things, but things I would like, almost my ears would perk up quicker when I'd see or hear something to do with that topic. And this seems to have been a reoccurring theme in my life recently. And so look, the people who are listening to this podcast who don't know how this episode even happened, when you and I were speaking, this is only the second time we've had a chat, as you mentioned, and the first time we spoke, I wanted to take that opportunity in seeing you as someone that I look up to in that realm of taking your studies seriously. Allahumma barik. I really wanted to have that discussion with you and learn more about making that into a lifestyle, and perhaps even, like, I'll be honest, trying to encourage our listeners, of like, if any of them feel like, they need to step it up, then perhaps like this be a source of inspiration to them to say, oh, maybe I need to be better at it. Or if I feel like I'm trying and it's just not working, then maybe I need to make some changes so that I am like quote unquote deserved of it. But that's in its entirety, that's the thing that really shook me up recently, this idea of it being something that's you have to deserve, you have to earn, and that comes with good character, and that comes with like staying away from so much bad and stuff. So that was the whole premise of why I wanted to have this discussion.
Mm-hmm. Even the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said a beautiful hadith. He mentions, "Man yuridillahu bihi khayran yufaqihu fi ad-din." Whoever Allah tabaraka wa ta'ala He wants khayr for, is going to give him understanding of this religion. And understanding of this religion, as the scholars they mention, the likes of Ibn al-Qayyim rahimahullah, this is ilm al-nafi', it's amal al-salih, it's to learn something which is going to benefit you and that you're going to implement. So these are from one of the signs that Allah tabaraka wa ta'ala loves you, He wants khair for you. And likewise, we can understand from the opposite understanding is that if Allah tabaraka wa ta'ala does not want khair from you, if there is not good seen in you, then you're not going to be given understanding of this religion. And you're right, wallahi, you're right, in the sense where this ilm is the nur of Allah tabaraka wa ta'ala, and it's not given to everybody. It's like, look at it like this. Your father, let's say your father had an amount of money, or you had an amount of money, and you're about to pass away. Your inheritance, all your inheritance is not going to go to every single individual in your family. It's going to be breaking up, and it's being given to people who deserve it, or who you specifically write what you write, to whom you're going to give it to. Not everybody gets everything. Likewise, knowledge, it is the inheritance of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. It can't be given to, not everyone can take everything. It's broken up and it's given to certain individuals. And Allah tabaraka wa ta'ala picks and chooses whom He wills that's going to get it.
So how do you work towards deserving it?
One needs to be sincere. Because if you look at those who had sincerity, Allah tabaraka wa ta'ala, of course you need to have the desire for it, you need to want it, you need to work to it, but one needs to have sincerity when it comes to this. The sincerity is a make it or break it. For you to really get ilm al-nafi', it's a make it or break it. If you look at the examples of the madhahib that we have today, there was other scholars who came at that time and before some of the imma who had a madhab themselves, but we don't see it today. Likewise, how many scholars wrote books with a hadith in them and ilm in them, and they're not present to this day. It either got destroyed or whatever the case may have happened. So it's very important that one needs to have sincerity to Allah tabaraka wa ta'ala and implement that which he learned. That way there's barakah in that ilm that he is seeking. And constantly making dua to Allah tabaraka wa ta'ala, to instill this love of talab al-ilm in your heart and seeking knowledge. And again, not to the extent where, if you don't think it's suitable for you, to the point where, you're exerting yourself and your efforts, losing sleep and time to eat, whatever the case may be, but just to the point where, you find that you feel that sweetness when it comes to it. You feel the water gushing in your heart when you read something, or, you're reading the Quran and you start crying, or, just to find that sweetness to keep pushing you, and you know what I mean? So it's very important that whatever we learn, we try to act upon it. We try to be sincere with Allah tabaraka wa ta'ala. We try to make dua to Allah tabaraka wa ta'ala. And of course you got to put that effort in. Inshallah, like you mentioned as well, staying away from sins, cleaning the heart, freeing it from jealousy and hatred and animosity towards others. Because it's very, very important, because the heart is the vessel of this light. And if it's filled with something, it can't be filled with something else. A cup can't be filled with water and juice at the same time. So you need to dump it out and fill it with the next. Dump it out and then clean it and then fill it out with something else. So the heart is similar to that. It's similar to that. Allahu a'lam. Allah ta'ala a'lam. And of course, like things that would help one, like one path or increase or motivate is, Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala, he says, هل يستوي الذين يعلمون والذين لا يعلمون. And the ones who know and the ones who don't know, are they the same? They're not. لا يستوي أصحاب النار وأصحاب الجنة. The people that hellfire and the people that Jannah, they're not the same. They're not the same in rank. The one who seeks knowledge, the angels descend and they cover the gathering with their wings. The scholar, the creation of Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala makes dua for it. You know what I mean? Like the people of knowledge is like the moon in comparison to the stars. Like there's a lot of things, like just even reading, like fadlu talib al-ilm, the virtues of seeking knowledge, like that itself is a reason to motivate to motivate you as well, to get that status or to get that virtue or to get that place next to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam on the Day of Judgment.
I'm conscious of time, but I want to ask you before we go, what would your advice be to people who are listening to this podcast and now they're like, okay, I need to step it up. I want to put some focus on this. And that could be somebody who doesn't know how to read Alif Ba Ta, to somebody who finishes the Quran once a year in Ramadan, all the way to somebody who is trying to do their hifz. You know what I mean? What would the advice? What advice would you give to that person who's feeling inspired after this episode?
I would say one thing to keep in mind, again, because you give a lot of advices for a lot of things, and I'm not one to give advice for this, because I'm still like, I don't even consider myself a part of it. If you look in the school system, previously, they never used to call students. I think even in the UK they used to call them pupils. Am I correct? You're a baby student, because a student is someone who's able to be on his own and go about like that. That's a student. You just need someone to come give a little pointers and then he can go on his own. So me personally, I don't think I'm fit, but from the thing that I would like to just kind of give or make sure this is in the back of someone's mind is, طعام الكبار صم الصغار. That food for the old folk is poison to the youngers. For example, if we're having a steak right now and you wanted to feed steak to a baby boy or a baby girl, whatever the case may be, they can't digest that. So I would say, like, for someone to have this raghba, it just hits them hard and they just want to study now and I would say just make sure, like, you take it slow. You follow a curriculum, you find a teacher, and you take that which is necessary for you at that specific time. Because a lot of people fall into this. Me myself, I fell into this before. Wanting to take on something that I wasn't ready for. من استعجل شيئا قبل أوانه عوقب بحرمانه. The one who hastens to something before its timing is going to be in reality prevented from that thing. Imagine you want that, but you rush to it. So because of your rushing, you're not even going to get it. So it's important that we have sincerity and we take things shay'an for shay'an. We take it slowly. So for the one who doesn't know Alif Ba Ta, find a teacher, learn Alif Ba Ta, take it slow. You know what I mean? And don't look too much over your shoulder. What's this guy doing? What's that guy doing? Well, look at that guy. He studied 6 months and I did it 8, but he's ahead of me. And don't worry about those things. Don't worry about those things. Why? Because at the end of the day, who are you doing this for? You're doing it for Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala. And at the end of the day, you're not going to achieve every type of knowledge. You're not going to. It's not. Ilm it's a bahr. If anything, you might get a ship full of water. Maybe, or some people might get a cup. Who knows? But what's the most important is man salaka tariqan, whoever treads a path. So long as you're on that path, and you die on that path, and you meet Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala on that path, those are the people, inshallah, bi rahmatillahi tabaraka wa ta'ala, going to enter al-Jannah. So just take it slow, shay'an for shay'an, and just make sure it's a long time, a lifestyle. Whether that lifestyle becomes a lot, or yeah, exactly. Just make your goal should be just dying upon this path. You know, no matter how long it takes you. And even some of the scholars, it took them 9 years to understand a mas'ala. For example, hayd, to understand the cycle of a woman. Some scholars took them 9 years to understand a mas'ala. You know, some scholars they used to repeat things hundreds of times just to understand a mas'ala. Hundreds of times, sit there and just put on repeat. You know, some scholars used to go in steps, go up the steps, go down the steps, go up the steps, go down, just keep repeating, just memorizing, trying to understand something or keep it within themselves. You know, so. And again, also for those who are listening, it might be like old in age at the same time, and they think like, oh, it's too late for me, or, well, look at this young guy who's talking, he's still young, or something. I think the same thing sometimes with myself. I think I'm too old. You know, I look at kids, mashallah, they memorize the Quran, mutun, shi'r, whatever the case may be, but there's never, look at the companions, radwanallah alayhim. You know, they accepted Islam. A lot of them accepted Islam in old age. You know?
So.
Yeah, so.
Oh, man. You know, you left me so inspired, as it is. And in the two times that we've had a discussion, it's happened both times. So there's a 100% hit record with that one. And I just asked that Allah, you know, increases our bond for His sake, because benefiting from you is so lovely. You know.
I benefited from you too.
Would you mind if we finish up with a few questions from our game? It's not a shameless plug, but I think that I'd love to break down Adam Al-Maghribi if we can. So maybe ask about 5 or 6 questions. How does that sound?
No problem, inshallah.
Let's go for it. Right, I'm going to pick them at random.
Ready on the desk?
Well, no, I didn't actually have it ready because I have it on the desk as like a prop, but I haven't even. You know, I sometimes I would like think about a guest and I think, oh, like these questions might be good for that guest. I haven't had a chance to do that because I've just asked you last minute. I wasn't even planning to play the game, but I thought it would work really well. So I'm actually gonna ask you these at complete random, absolute random, and I'm just gonna ask you the ones that come up. So they might be really easy because they're gonna be completely random. The way it works is that some of them are about me. And others are about you, in the sense that it might be a question like you giving me advice, or it might be a question that you answer about yourself. And I'm just gonna completely at random ask you a bunch. That was the rules. Okay, so I'm just gonna pick the top one here.
You came up with this game on your own?
Yes, that not like me on my own, but like freshly grounded.
Oh, okay.
Well, conversation cards, by the way, are something that exist, you know. So it's not a new concept, but we wanted to create something that kind of had a meaning to it that was a bit deeper than just conversation, but it allowed you to reflect on your relationship with your loved ones, but B also allowed you to connect and reflect on your relationship with Allah. And more than anything, each question has been considered from like different aspects, right? So I'll give you an example. One of the questions says one of the questions, it's my favorite question, by the way, so you better like this one. This question is think of someone you recently had a disagreement with and tell me 3 amazing qualities about them. And the reason I like that question so much is because it makes you think of someone you had a recent disagreement with, and in naming 3 great qualities about them, you almost like want to rectify the relationship because you're forced to only think good things about that person, and it almost at the end of it hopefully will make you actually want to rectify that relationship. The second thing I like about it is the thought that the team put into it about is very specifically had to say.
I don't mean to cut you off, Allah forgive me, but that's very profound. You know, some of the scholars, they mentioned when one wants to remove hasad or animosity or hatred to one another, they should make dua in their absence. To make dua in their absence, because it'll naturally remove that or make you. So it kind of has the same concept along about it. It's very beautiful.
Yeah, the other reason I like that question is because one of the things that the team put into it was without telling me who they are, name three great things about them. And so what that does is that protects the other person's izzah as well, in case we both know them, right? It protects their izzah, and it also protects you from exposing somebody, and it protects you from exposing yourself and any of your sins by saying we had a disagreement. Then you'll say, oh, what was the disagreement about? And then maybe you might expose yourself. And then lastly, what I like about that question is that it stops or it minimizes assumptions, because you're not saying who it is, so it doesn't give me much room to assume what that person had done. If I said, oh, my disagreement was with Adam, and I think that he is, he's got a great smile and he is like very humble, then what would happen is I'd go, the other person would go, oh, Adam, I wonder what Adam did. Oh, maybe he did this. His personality is like this, or maybe it was this. And so that's that's an example of a question, and how much thought we put into each question, from like multiple different factors. The short answer, conversation cards do exist, but we hope that this is one that benefits people a bit further than just a regular conversation card. Okay, I'm picking one at random. This question says, what was a point in your life when you started to believe in yourself?
I don't know. That's a deep one. I don't know.
You can pass. I'll let you pass if you need to.
I would like to think that I always kind of had that element in me, but yeah, I don't think there was like a point where I just woke up and said, you know what, I'm believing in myself now. Like, yeah,
fine.
So I would say I'd like to think there was that type of element all the time in me. Alhamdulillah.
Okay. What do you know about yourself now that you didn't know about yourself when you were younger? What do you know about yourself now that you didn't when you were younger? This should be an interesting one, because like you said, you've kind of publicly spoken about your story before, and sometimes it feels for a lot of us that it's almost two different lives, right? Like your youth and where you're at now.
Yeah. I would say.
So what do you know about yourself now?
I don't want people to take it out of context, but I'd say I'm a little bit. I can get hurt easy. I started realizing that about myself. Like, you can say something, I won't ever let you know, but it'll touch me, and I'm like, oh wow. I started noticing that about myself.
Why do you think you didn't know that when you were younger? Do you think it's because you felt like you had to put on a tough image?
Yeah, it's just I guess it came just with the lifestyle. Like, you're not allowed to do that. Yeah. If you did, you'd get rebuked, and so it just I guess it's something you just built in yourself. You just got so accustomed to it, you got used to it, and, yeah. So I think that would be.
Yeah, I think it's an element of that with youth in general. Like, sometimes the ignorance of youth is bliss as well, because emotions also mature as you get older, right?
Yeah, that's true. And I feel like getting married too, when people get married as well, a little like feminine side, like not in a negative way, but like they yeah, I don't know how to say that without making it sound wrong, but
it's all right. We'll leave it at that. Do you think I'm reaching my potential?
You?
Yeah, and that's an interesting one again, because the element of this discussion is it's your second time meeting me. So
okay.
It's interesting from that angle.
I would say, from what I noticed about you when I spoke to you, and along with a lot of the UK guys are like this, you're very goal orientated, on top of time management. So knowing that and seeing previously how freshly grounded was before, I'm not gonna lie, I never watched, I don't think I ever watched a full entire episode before. Forgive me for that, but from what I've seen previously to now, but seeing like now compared to before, I would say yeah, Allahu Barak, I think so, yeah. And may Allah Tabarak wa Ta'ala increase you and put barakah in it and make you sincere, mashallah.
I mean, I'd hope to think that I'm never reaching my potential. because I wouldn't want to get content with where I'm at. I'd like to think I'm definitely not reaching my potential, because that would mean that would be such sad news for me, you know, that this is where it's finishes, you know, like the potential that I could hopefully reach. And I probably more so do mean that from an Islamic level of like where I want to be and where I am. So I'd hope I haven't. But yeah, the reaching your potential thing is an interesting one. Okay, I am actually going to skip this one because it's very similar to the one before. It says, if you could give me a piece of advice on anything, what would it be? So let me. I prefer the ones where they're about you. So I'll try not to skip too many, but I'll be honest. Okay, again, it's about me. I'm not doing it. It said, what took you the longest to understand about me? Oh no, these are all right.
Yeah,
I'm going against.
It's meant to be. It's meant to be.
I'm gonna choose one. Finish the sentence. Dear Allah.
Allahu Akbar. I said, "Dear, forgive me." Yeah,
Forgive me.
yeah. I said, forgive me, Allah. Do people usually give some deep answers when it comes to that one?
No, that is a deep answer. That is a deep answer. It reminds me of it's a great answer because it reminds me of, I've mentioned this so many times, but it reminds me of when I was traveling. Somebody told me that they were sitting in the class, but maybe it wasn't them, where a student asked the sheikh, his question was, "Sheikh, can you tell us the easiest way to get into Jannah?" And the sheikh said, "Ask the one who has control of it." You know? Which I thought was an amazing answer, because it's true. Like, he was basically saying that if that dua got accepted, the one who has, then that's it, you're in. Like, you know, there's no other, we have a direct, you know, we don't have to seek Allah through others. You know, you ask him. And yeah. Okay, I'm gonna give you. I've got these questions lined up. I'll be honest. I did select these. I wasn't random with them.
Okay.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Is that okay? 5 questions.
Yeah, no problem.
You can be as quick or as long without them as you want. If you want, you can do it quick fire. If you want, you can spend time on them. Okay. First question: what is the biggest small thing that you could do today?
The biggest small thing that I could do today. Go see my parents.
That's amazing. Yeah, similar. We had answers. I think the most common answer is smile. That's quite a common answer.
Yeah.
With smiling being a sunnah, it's like I like that answer as well. But likewise, I like your answer as well. Do you need to forgive yourself more easily?
No, I don't like that. I like to believe I'm harsh with myself, and I like that.
Yeah, fair.
It keeps me on my toes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good. I think some people can get hung up on.
You look at me like you're waiting for more. I'm so sorry.
No. Yeah, I'm letting the answer marinate, you know, because I think like one of the. Do you know what's funny is one of the comments one of the most popular comments on Freshly Grounded used to be that I don't. I'm too uncomfortable with silence. and naturally I am, and so I don't I don't let silence happen. And people used to advise me, Faisal, it's okay, like silence is okay, like, you know, it adds like it lets you think about the next question, it adds like an element of it adds something great to the answer and stuff like that. And so I worked so hard at being comfortable with silence. And then I remember, I think two episodes ago I if something didn't come to mind instantly, I would just let it be silent, you know, like a normal conversation. And obviously there's an element of this conversation that's so alien, which is crazy, because back in the day, two people speaking would have been such a normal thing to do. Now, with technology, with text messaging, with emails, the fact that you can think of a response before typing it, now this conversation that you and I are having right now is alien. It's completely weird that two people are having a conversation without the use of technology, other than obviously us virtually meeting, but like no phone, and there's no time to wait and think, how should I respond? And because of that, we're no longer accustomed, we're not used to having a conversation one-on-one, right? But anyway, alhamdulillah, Allah has blessed me with the ability to be able to conversate with people because of Freshly Grounded. Not that I'm good at it, just that I have the opportunity, right? So anyway,
No, Allah Barak, you're good. MashaAllah, you're good.
People, so I was like, okay, I'm going to try and be comfortable with silence. And about 2 episodes ago, I did an episode with this brother called Angel. And this brother, he became Muslim about 2 or 3 months ago, and he's got an amazing journey.
MashaAllah.
And
No bad. Allah, no bad.
it's actually amazing how his journey started, actually, when you really reflect on his journey starting. Like, he sincerely himself, he had an addiction, and he mentioned this, or he was battling an addiction with pornography, and he chose to take hold of it. And little did he know that years down the line, he would become a Muslim. And it's amazing, because it's almost like a deed that he refrained from then, that Muslims are still suffering with now, but also something that Islamically, it's like his action of deciding to sincerely leave that and change his life around was like an Islamic decision, right? It's like he left it, but obviously he wasn't Muslim when he did that. And you know, that ended up, that it's like, it was like a domino effect, like that one action led to another action, led to another action, led to another action, and it ended up in him finding out about Islam and becoming Muslim. Is amazing. Anyway, in that episode, I'm going off on a tangent. In that episode, I chose to be comfortable with silence. And the comments were like, it's so awkward when Faisal's silent. The silences are too awkward. Like, it's so uncomfortable. And I was like, oh my gosh, I'm trying to be silent here, guys. I'm trying to, like, if I feel silent, like, you know, be happy with it. So yeah, it's a tough balance. Okay, Adam, we have 3 last questions.
Okay, Sunnah.
Tell me something about your father that you didn't appreciate until you became older.
How much he works hard.
How hard he works. That's a good answer.
Yeah.
Why do you think that you didn't appreciate that when you were younger? Because I think I relate to that answer, but why is it?
I would just say because of my lack of presence, being around and things like that. So I didn't really get to see much, especially being home, like, because yeah, I've just been home for quite a few years. And yeah, just being around now, the past few years, like if I'm not overseas and stuff like that, just seeing what time he wakes up, time he goes to sleep, how like he doesn't hang out with anybody, he has no friends. Not that because he's like, it's not that he doesn't, like he can't, he chooses not to. He's a very family orientated individual, Allahumma barik, you know. So I just, when I see that now, I appreciate it, and it's an example for myself that I should be more family orientated as well, you know. Yeah, so I appreciate it. I appreciate it, and he's very generous. Allahumma barik. He's very generous, and yeah, he's very humble too. My dad, when it comes to when I go give classes and stuff, he'll come and he'll sit on the floor with everybody else. And Allahumma barik. He's very humble. Allahumma barik. So I benefit that from him as well. Yeah.
Think about someone in your life that's no longer here. What is one lesson they taught you?
وَاعْبُدْ رَبَّكَ حَتَّى يَأْتِيَكَ الْيَقِينُ. Say, worship Allah Tabarak wa Ta'ala until certainty reaches you. The reason why I say that is because the people that I've lost to like gang violence. So like I had one kid one time, he was 17 years old, he got shot in the head. I had another very close friend of mine, he got shot when he was like 22. So the benefit that I would learn from them is the lifestyle that they chose to live, and they continued living it till they met Allah in that state. So from that, I would understand and I would benefit that I don't want to meet Allah Tabarak wa Ta'ala in that way. So as Allah Tabarak wa Ta'ala mentions, worship Allah the way Allah Tabarak wa Ta'ala deserves to be worshipped, and continue down that path, and never think yourself too great and not worthy of submitting yourself to Allah Tabarak wa Ta'ala until that certainty comes to you, which is death.
Jazakallah khair. I got one last question for you, and then I will let you go, inshallah. Jazakallah khair for giving us your time. The question is, I saved this one to the end because I was intrigued by your answer. And the question is, tell me an Islamic reminder you once heard that has stayed with you till this day.
There's a lot.
One that like when you like, as much as there'll be a lot, one that's like when you heard it, something changed in you,
Is I would think it would be like the qissa that I heard a long time ago with the Fir'aun of this ummah, if I'm not mistaken, Abu Jahl. When he came to the battlefield and two young men were so eager to face him in the battlefield, because they heard about how he used to violate the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And so when they came to the battlefield, they were telling the Prophet sallallahu, they were asking about where's Abu Jahl, where is he? And so one of the companions, they looked at him and they said, what do you want with Abu Jahl? What are you gonna do? You guys are two young guys, But when they got news of who Abu Jahl was, the way they rushed and they charged him and they killed Abu Jahl. That was one story that it really touched me in the sense where they were young men, but it was their love for the Prophet ﷺ that drove them to do or have that feeling that they had in their heart. And I feel like a lot of us, we lack that. Not in a sense where, I hope no one takes me out of context and just runs around and go about and do some crazy stuff, but just the fact that, we don't have the love of the Prophet ﷺ to sacrifice our own evil deeds, so to speak. We don't have the love for the Prophet ﷺ. We don't have the love to the extent where we fight ourselves. We do jihad and nafs and we win. So I think that was one qissa, that was one story that really touched me and motivated me as a young individual to increase my love for the Prophet ﷺ and try to follow him and take him as a role model.
Jazakallah khair. To you, thank you for joining us on this podcast. I really appreciate it. It was a nice mellow episode of the podcast, I think, the whole way through, alhamdulillah. I hope that the people enjoyed it, who are listening. And again, just a big thank you to you, Adam. Thank you for giving us your time. And
No problem.
inshallah we could do this again sometime, perhaps in person.
Inshallah.
Inshallah.